I remember that night as if it were yesterday. The silence was not just the absence of sound, it was a living presence, a density that seemed to swallow me whole. The city outside was asleep, the traffic gone, the voices quiet, the world dim under the heavy curtain of night. But inside me something was stirring. I could not name it, could not explain it, could not even contain it. All I knew was that, while the world slept, a voice inside was waking. And it was not a voice of words, it was a voice of presence. A vibration, a calling that pressed against the edges of my being, insisting that I listen. For so long, I had lived by noise. The noise of obligations, the noise of expectations, the noise of everything that demanded my attention from the outside world. But that night, the silence was louder than all the noise combined. It was as if the universe itself had decided to use stillness as a megaphone. And in that stillness, questions began to rise, like storms gathering clouds. Via miare. What is life really about? Is there a purpose beyond being born, working, aging, and dying? 4 years, I had pushed these questions aside, dismissing them as philosophical luxuries, thoughts for dreamers with too much time. But now they burned inside of me like embers pressed against my chest. The room where I sat was small, lit only by the faint glow of a streetlight leaking through the curtains. Shadows stretched across the walls, and everything seemed ordinary, painfully ordinary. And yet, something was changing. I didn't know if I was dreaming while awake, or if I had been asleep all my life and was finally waking into a larger dream. Then it happened. I felt it. Not a sound, not a vision, a presence, a weightless pressure that came not from outside, but from within, as if the universe itself had leaned down and whispered into the depths of my being. Remember. I closed my eyes and reality cracked open like shattered glass. Behind the fragments, images spilled through me, a river flowing in silence, stars pulsing in a sky without end, and a voice, soft as breath yet undeniable. You are already on the path. My body trembled. I could not tell if I was afraid or in awe, but one thing I knew with absolute certainty. This was not imagination. This was real. Real in a way that no logic could explain. Real in a way that my bones recognized. Even if my mind could not, in the days that followed, I could no longer live as before. The city continued as it always had, people rushing, cars honking, advertisements shouting their promises. But I saw it all differently. Every glance, every stranger, every repetition of routine felt like part of a grand stage play, a theater performance where no one remembered they were acting. I've watched people and wondered, do they also hear this silent calling, but choose to ignore it? Or was I, by some strange grace or accident, chosen to perceive what others could not? The questions would not let me go, so I began to seek. I turned to books, to conversations that felt deeper than small talk, to solitary meditations where I sat with nothing but my own breath. I wandered the streets at night with no destination, listening not for sounds, but for the spaces between them. And slowly, a pattern began to reveal itself. The universe was always speaking, not in thunder or lightning, but in subtle signs. In coincidences that weren't coincidences, in improbable encounters. Life was leaving breadcrumbs, and I was finally learning to see them. And with every breadcrumb, a realization took root. Nothing is random. Everything connects. And with every connection, I felt myself receiving new eyes. The world had not changed, but the way I saw it had. And with awakening came weight. Because once you perceive, you cannot unsee. Unsay you know, you cannot unknow. Light carries responsibility. I could no longer pretend to be blind. I could no longer walk, as if life were a meaningless routine. Something inside demanded change, and change was not easy. Friends drifted away. Some laughed. Some called me naive, a dreamer lost in illusions. Their words stung, but only briefly, because within me, a deeper voice whispered, "Dreaming is only the first step toward awakening." One night, alone again in my room, I sat on the floor and whispered into the silence, "Show me more." The air thickened around me, vibrating like invisible strings drawn tight. My skin prickled. And then I saw, not with my eyes, but with something far beyond them. I saw that everything is woven together in an invisible web, a tapestry of vibration. Every thought was a thread, every emotion a frequency, every intention a seed. I saw waves rising from me, colliding with other waves, shaping the space around me. I understood in a single rush of clarity. Reality was not happening to me. Reality was happening through me. I realized we are not victims of chance. We are co-creators. Each thought, each desire, each vibration writes itself into the fabric of life. There is no separation between the invisible and the visible, between what we imagine and what we live. The universe is always listening. The universe is always responding. The truth was both liberating and terrifying. Liberating, because it meant I was not powerless. Terrifying, because it meant I could no longer hide behind excuses. If reality reflects my vibration, then I am responsible for everything I experience. The weight of that realization sent chills down my spine. How many realities had I already created unconsciously? How many times had I imprisoned myself with vibrations of fear and doubt? But then another thought followed. If I created unconsciously, what could I create consciously? From then on, I began to test. At dawn, before rising from bed, I would choose a vibration. Gratitude, trust, joy without reason. I would breathe it in, let it settle into my chest, and carry it with me like a secret rhythm. And as I walked into the day, I began to notice small changes. Lines moved faster. Strangers met me with kindness. The air itself seemed lighter. Problems felt less suffocating. It was as if the invisible architecture of life was rearranging itself to match the frequency I carried. It wasn't magic. It was alignment. It was vibration. There were setbacks. Many times, the old mind, trained to fear, trained to complain, pulled me back. There were days I sank into anger or worry, forgetting everything I had learned. But even then I saw the lesson. Changing vibration was not an instant switch. It was practice. It was training, like learning to play an instrument, where the fingers stumble and the sound cracks at first. But with patience, music begins to flow. Then one night, I dreamed of a vast, endless space, white and silent, where every thought I had spilled outward as waves of color. Dark, heavy waves when I thought of fear. Golden, radiant waves when I thought of love. And I saw those waves stretch outward, collide, and eventually return to me multiplied. I woke gasping, drenched in sweat, but with the sense that the dream was no dream at all, but a lesson. The next morning, I decided to live as if that vision were truth, and everything changed. I began to see my thoughts as seeds. Seeds that would grow into harvests I could not escape. Fear bore. Fear gratitude. Bor grace lubor. Lob. And the more carefully I chose what I planted, the more beautiful the harvest became. Life, it turned out, was not punishing or rewarding me. It was simply mirroring me. And so, the silent calling became a language of vibration, A language that did not use words, but frequencies. A language that did not speak to my ears, but to my soul. And I learned that the calling was not only mine, it belongs to all of us. Every human being carries the same spark, the same possibility of awakening, the same whisper waiting in silence. Some hear it sooner, some later. But none of us are exempt. We are more than bodies, more than names, more than stories. We are consciousness. We are life itself, looking at itself through countless eyes. Sometimes I wonder if all of reality is nothing more than a vast dream we share, a play we perform without knowing we are actors. But awakening does not mean abandoning the stage. It means playing with truth, with presence, with love. Looking back, I see that night as the beginning of everything. Not because anything outside me changed, but because I finally listened. I heard the voice that had always been there, waiting. And if you are hearing me now, perhaps that voice is calling you too. Do not ignore it. Do not run, because the calling is not from outside. It is from within. It is from your own future, from the highest part of who you are, reminding you of what you already carry. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, feel it. The universe is ready to respond. It has always been ready. It is waiting only for your vibration. And when you feel it, you will know you were never alone. Every step, every pain, every joy, all of it was part of the design. A design woven of love, of consciousness, of purpose. And you will realize the miracle was never distant. The miracle has always been you.